this is an amazing story, and Lewis and Clark are the star makers of it.
I think a lot of people also see the expedition as an adventure story, which it is.
I didn't realize it was a huge military undertaking when I was a kid. It was Lewis and Clark, a couple of guys going across the country.
It was 33 people that went on the expedition, not including the baby and the dog.
And to be funny about it, you know, you've got the buddy film, right? You've got Lewis and Clark at it again, right? You've got an indigenous woman on the expedition, so a young girl. You've got, you know, an African-American male, and to put it way over the top, they brought their dog with them, right? I mean, it's our story. It's great.
And I think there's so much about the ways that we learn about these things from childhood on, and the way that public memory kind of tells these stories that can belie a little bit of the nuance and some of the complexities of the full truth.
We as Americans are losing our history in many ways, and this is one of the stories that we cannot lose, because this is the quintessential American story.
This is one of our first true American stories, in the sense that everyone up to this point had been born or lived and grew up prior to independence, right? Almost every member of the expedition was born either during the Revolution or shortly before the Revolution, or certainly after the Revolution. So you've got one of the first true American success stories.
It is totally about how young America figured it out in spite of great obstacle, in facing incredible odds. There's no way this group should have made it to the Pacific coast and back. And as we're going to learn, only one person died. And it was the result of something that had nothing to do with the expedition at all.
The Lewis and Clark trip began as an idea that Jefferson had to explore the rest of the continent.
The main driver of the Lewis and Clark expedition, of course, was Thomas Jefferson. But Thomas Jefferson had been thinking about this expedition for a very long time.
My goodness, it goes clear back even to the 1780s, definitely in the 1790s.
He's been trying to get an expedition west of the Appalachian Mountains for quite some time, really west of the Mississippi River for quite some time. Never really had the authority to do so until he became president of the United States.
He wanted to know what was out in that great mysterious West. And Jefferson, like many founding figures of the United States, but especially so as a man who thought in terms of enlightenment and discovery, was somebody who really believed in the potential of North America and what it might hold, and he wanted to know more about it.
Here's all of this land out west and what treasures could be out here. The people that lived here, how they lived, the resources out here. Could there be mammoths out here? There's just endless possibilities.
Jefferson was half convinced there might still be mastodons walking around in the American West. There were not, but you don't know till you go look.
Some of the timing there gets a little tricky when it has to do with the legality of sending an expedition into what was at the time foreign-controlled territory.
France helped us win the revolution. They helped us finance our war against Britain, and in the process, France went broke.
It was a lot of opportunity arising that Jefferson pragmatically took advantage of, and a lot of it has to do with the Napoleonic Wars, troubles in Europe, and Napoleon trying to divest himself of an expensive part of his empire.
Now the British were fighting France, and Napoleon needed some quick cash, and so he had this parcel land out here in the middle of nowhere in America, North America, and Benjamin Franklin and Jefferson and some others got wind of it, and they had to keep it. It was a secret thing. They kept it underneath wraps, and they were able to broker a deal with France before the Spanish could get wind of it.
Jefferson goes to Congress in January of 1803 and has a secret meeting with Congress to get the expedition funded. That's approved in January of 1803.
You know, you look at a textbook today and it's going to tell you exactly what the boundary lines of Louisiana. What we know is it took us 20 years to define the boundary lines of that territory.
The Lewis and Clark trip had kind of three parts to it. One, Jefferson wanted them to find the easiest way by water to get to the Pacific Ocean. Number two, there was a diplomatic mission, and they were basically trying to make contact with as many Indian tribes as possible. And the third part, I think, was the scientific endeavor. They were seeing things that were new to Americans, and Jefferson wanted a record of this.
With this being his brainchild and being the president, he had a lot of control over what was happening and selecting like the primary leader of this, which was Meriwether Lewis.
In 1801, he brings on Meriwether Lewis as his personal secretary, and he starts grooming this guy. He starts grooming him to be his man. I think he's grooming him to be he's got him as his personal secretary for a reason.
What Jefferson's looking for is someone to go out and help lay claim to as much of that Louisiana territory, what would become the Louisiana territory, as possible. And he saw in an individual right across the table from him, a man that he exhibited, as he said, courage undaunted, and Meriwether Lewis, his personal secretary, probably in many ways literally growing up in the shadow of Monticello and of the Jeffersons, a young man who could lead this expedition successfully.
For more information or to become involved with the Lewis and Clark Trail Alliance, visit lewisandclark.org. To learn more about Shenandoah University and the Shenandoah Center for Immersive Learning, visit su.edu/skill.